Привет! I'm Chuck Olenek, a Ukrainian-American baptized with the name Yaroslav, and that's also the name that I use in the Society for Creative Anachronism with my Eastern European, very specifically Ukrainian persona. And what I've been doing with my YouTube channel is I've been creating videos to help folks out in the society as far as sharing a bunch of my research on Eastern Europe. So I have done videos on Slavic mythology and folklore and Eastern European history, and I'm putting these up intending them to be maybe a starting place for people interested in taking a look at creating a persona for that part of the world. So I've been dealing with the city of Novgorod, or the city-state of Novgorod, or the Republic of Novgorod. And Novgorod is a different animal than other Rus principalities. You know, it celebrated its minstrels, it celebrated its merchants, because Novgorod's dealing with the Hanseatic League, and they're getting influence from Moscow. So it's a different environment, different vibe. And so it would be only natural for this city to end up celebrating the Skoromoch, the minstrel class, and the merchants. So now here we are at number 100 of Tales of the Borderland. I'm going to tell the tale of Sadko Kupets, who, by the way, is the coolest figure in the Novgorod cycle. He must have attracted a lot of attention because there is a whole bunch of stories and songs about him and a lot of variants, which was a lot of fun to wade through. So let's get started with the tale of Sadko Kupets. Who would tell us of the things of old, of the things of old and of the things that have been, of young Sadko Kupets, that Sadko Kupets, the gozly player, of Sadko, the Skoromoch of Novgorod, who played for the Tsar of the sea. In the wealthy city of Novgorod lived a poor musician named Sadko, who played the gozly. Sadko was an orphan and had made a little bit of money playing his instrument and singing songs at feasts and celebrations of the wealthy merchants of Novgorod. The merchants were not the finest connoisseurs of music. They paid him with the leftovers of their feasts, or if he was lucky, with coins. There were occasions when Sadko had no work, no money, little food. At those times he would seek inspiration for his music from nature. On one such day he sat by the shore of Lake Ilmen and sang to himself. He sang of the loveliness of the lake and compared its blue waters to the eyes of the girl he was yet to meet and marry. When he had finished, the water elf rose out of the lake and said, "Thank you, Sadko, gozly player. Today the Tsar of the sea had a big feast, and all his guests were very pleased by your songs. He wants to reward you by telling you a great secret." The next day, there was a big feast at a merchant's house. The guests all began to engage in the traditional ritual of boasting about their wealth and of their possessions, of their appearance, and they asked Sadko to join them. Sadko, however, replied, "I have no money, no horse, no family, no woman that I can boast of. I am but a poor musician. My only possession is my gozly." There was contemptuous laughter around the room, and one of the loudmouth merchants, one of the hosties, said, "Any cat can sing on a spring evening. Surely you must have something more worthwhile than music to speak of." For a moment, Sadko could not think of how to reply, and the laughter grew more biting and uproarious. "Wait, wait," he called out. "I have something that not one of you possess. It's a fish with fins made of gold that can swim." There were calls for him to show this remarkable fish, and when he protested that he could not, for it was still swimming in Lake Ilmen, there was yet more laughter. "But I speak the truth," he shouted, not knowing where his courage came from. "I and only I can catch it, and if any of you will join me in a wager, I shall prove it tomorrow." Because the merchants were in fine spirits and probably full of plenty of green wine and sweet mead, many of them were willing to bet large sums that the musician could not catch the golden-finned fish, even though he had nothing to wager in return. To everyone's astonishment, he caught the gold-finned fish in Lake Ilmen, for it had been sent by the Tsar of the Sea in return for a favor. When he caught it, the merchants had to make good on their wager and to pay up. He built a grand home for himself, a palace, married a lovely girl named Lubava, and became a most prosperous merchant. With his treasure, Sadko built 30 ships and sailed up the Volkhov into the Lake Ladoga and down the Neva and onto the Golden Horde. Sadko traded on the seas with his new wealth, but he failed to pay proper respect to the Tsar of the Sea as per their agreement. One day, his fleet of ships was returning home to Novgorod with a cargo of goods from other lands. But it happened that the ships were suddenly becalmed. They could make no headway. The Tsar of the Sea had stopped Sadko's ships, and Sadko realized that Tsar Mordskoy wanted him to make an offering. He and his sailors tried to appease the Sea Tsar. They threw gold into the water, hoping the Tsar would be pleased. This did not work. Sadko realized a sacrifice of a live soul was being demanded. All the shipmates drew lots, but Sadko drew the unlucky lot, as if by fate, perhaps by magic. And so he was sent overboard upon a plank of oak, and he sank into the sea, taking his beloved Gosli with him. He soon found himself beneath the sea at Tsar Morskoy's palace, with his 11 daughters swimming about him. The Tsar of the Sea invited him to play for his feast, and when Sadko did, the guests and Tsar Mordskoy started to dance. The water elf approached Sadko and whispered in his ear to stop playing because the dance was causing an awful storm on the sea above. Such a storm had never been seen before. Ships were sinking, people were dying. When Sadko realized what madness he was causing in the world above, he began to pluck the strings off his gosli one by one, breaking them until he couldn't play anymore. When the Tsar of the Sea demanded that he continue playing, Sadko replied, "I cannot." And he showed the broken strings of the gosli to the Sea Tsar and said he could only get new strings if he returned to land. But that ploy did not work with the Tsar. The water elf told Sadko that Tsar Morskoy wanted the musician to stay in his sea kingdom to marry one of his girls. She told Sadko to choose the last girl in the line, but not to take her as a wife, not to embrace her as a wife, if he ever hoped to return to Novgorod. Sadko did as he was advised and picked the last girl, the river Volkhva. "A good choice," exclaimed the Tsar. "This daughter of mine is the river Volkhva that flows by your home in Novgorod." That night, Sadko and his bride did not embrace as husband and wife. Instead, Volkhva comforted him until he fell asleep. Later that night, in Novgorod, a young boy found the body of Sadko washed up on the riverbank. His gosli was still strapped to his back. At first he thought that the man was drowned, But then he belched up river water, and the boy called for help. Sadko revived and returned to his home and to his beloved wife, Lubava, who was overjoyed at seeing him again. Everybody else was very surprised to see Sadko alive and well. Sadko and Lubava lived happily after that. And from then on, he never neglected to play his gozli for the Tsar of the Sea. It was at the feast I heard this tale, there it was I drank mead ale. Though it flowed down my beard, my mouth stayed dry, for never a drop passed my lips, swear I.